Imagine realizing that the person who meant everything to you is already gone. That's the tragedy at the heart of Frieren Beyond Journey's End. A love story built on time, regret, and the haunting realization of what was there all along. But here's the twist. This love story isn't just about two people, it has three sides. There's Frieren, the immortal mage, who only begins to understand love when it's far too late. There's Himmel, the hero who cherished every fleeting moment they had, even as time ran out. And the third side, well, it might not be who you expect, but we'll get to that soon. Before we dive into these perspectives, let's take a step back and explore why stories like this connect with us so deeply. Love stories have been told for centuries, yet no matter how many times we hear them, they still move us. But why? What is it about love that keeps us coming back? Sometimes love is about inspiration, about meeting someone who changes your life forever, even if they can't stay. Your Lie in April is a great story, but not in the way we expect. It's not about two people getting together, it's about how one person can bring color back into another's world. The beauty of their love isn't in its fulfillment, but in what it leaves behind, the way it reshapes our main character. But love, no matter how bright, doesn't always last. Some love stories are fleeting by nature, defined by the brief moments they exist. Titanic is a perfect example. Jack and Rose's love is doomed from the start, but that doesn't make it any less powerful. If anything, it makes it even stronger. They have only a handful of days together, yet in that time, their love changes Rose's entire life. She carries it with her long after Jack's gone, proving that love isn't always about how long it lasts, but how deeply it stays with us. Other times, love is about chasing something that's already slipped through your fingers. In The Great Gatsby, Gatsby dedicates his entire life to the dream of rekindling his love with Daisy, never realizing that the past he longs for is already gone. His love is real, but it's also an illusion, something he can never truly have again. And then there's The Notebook, where love isn't about chasing the past, but about holding on to it as long as possible. Even as memories fade, Noah refuses to let go of the love he shared with Allie, fighting against time itself to keep their story alive. Love isn't always obvious at first. Pride and Prejudice shows us this through Elizabeth and Darcy, two people who don't realize their love for each other at first, blinded by their own prejudices. But as they grow, as they come to understand each other, their love is revealed not as something sudden, but as something that was always there, waiting to be seen. And then there's love that endures through suffering. Clannad is a story that doesn't just show love at its best, but love through its hardest moments, finding happiness, losing it, and somehow carrying love even through the unbearable pain. It's the kind of love that doesn't just exist in good times, but in the quiet moments of grieving and healing, proving that love doesn't end when life becomes difficult. These stories stay with us because love isn't just about happiness, it's about time, regret, and realizing the weight of what we had only after it's gone. And that brings us to Frieren Beyond Journey's End. It's a love story unlike any other, not one of passion or outright romance, but of time slipping away, of words left unsaid, and of realizing too late that love was there all along. Frieren's perspective on time is fundamentally different than that of mortals. As an elf, her lifespan stretches over centuries, and because of this, emotions like love take on a different meaning. To her, love is not something that is chased or nurtured over time. It's transient, often fleeting, and ultimately irrelevant in the grand scheme of a long life. Elves aren't built to experience romantic attachment the way humans do. This disconnection from love is one of the reasons elves are slowly becoming extinct. Their focus on intellectual pursuits, magic, and self-sufficiency leaves little room for the deep emotional bonds that shape human lives. This view heavily influences how Frieren experiences her relationships, especially with Himmel. During their journey, Himmel was, in her eyes, simply another member of the group, someone with endless energy and a flair for the dramatic gestures. She never thought much of his behavior, interpreting it as part of his character. A hero who thrives on admiration and recognition. For Frieren, Himmel was a companion, nothing more. She didn't see the depth of his affection or recognize the significance of his actions. His small, consistent gestures of care, waiting for her, looking after her, taking the time to understand her, were lost as they didn't align with her elven view of love. In fact, Frierin's emotional distance, influenced by her elven nature, prevented her from identifying her own feelings. She never considered that the bond she shared with Himmel could be anything more than a temporary camaraderie. Elves by nature don't form attachments in the way humans do. They don't need to. The idea that love could be something enduring, something worth revisiting, never crossed her mind. She had time, after all, an endless supply of it. When their journey ended and Himmel and the rest of the party moved on, Frieren, true to her nature, did the same. She believed they would meet again, that there would always be another chance. This passage of time wasn't something to fear, because in her mind, she was above its constraints. But this view doesn't account for morality. 50 years passed before she finally returned to see Himmel again, but by that time, he had aged, and his life was drawing to a close. It's only in Himmel's death that Frieren begins to understand what she's lost. She sees his grave, feels the absence, and begins to revisit those small moments she once dismissed. His affection, his care, his quiet but consistent devotion, they were always there. The tragedy is not that she didn't love him, but that she didn't see it until it was too late. But the question remains, why didn't she see it? And perhaps more importantly, why did Himmel see it so clearly? That brings us to Himmel's side of the story. Himmel understood something that Frieren never did. Time is precious. While Frieren moved through life as if time were infinite, Himmel knew the truth. His time was running out. From the moment they met, he knew he would one day disappear from her world, reducing to nothing but a distant memory. That's what made his love for her so painful and so beautiful. But Himmel was never the type to wallow in tragedy. He was a hero after all. He was the one who pulled the sword from the stone, the kind who smiled even in the face of heartbreak. Instead of telling Frieren how he felt, instead of demanding something she wasn't ready to understand, he chose another path. He showed her. Every time he waited for her, every time he stayed by her side, every time he listened when no one else did, those were his confessions. He never needed grand speeches or sweeping gestures. His love wasn't loud. It wasn't desperate. It was quiet, steady, patient. And yet he knew. He knew she didn't see it. He knew that to her, he was just Himmel, the boastful hero, a man who craved admiration, who loved attention, who sometimes played up his image for the sake of others, but that was never who he was to her. To Frieren, he was the one who stood beside her without needing a reason. He was the one who noticed the little things about her that no one else did. He was the one who told her time and time again that she would miss him when he's gone. That wasn't arrogance. That wasn't pride. That was a warning. And yet, she didn't listen. When their journey ended, Himmel did as he always done. He smiled, he let her go, and he waited. Not for her to come back, not for some grand reunion, but for the day she would finally understand. Because in the end, Himmel's love wasn't about being seen in the moment. It was about leaving something behind that would last beyond him. 50 years later, she's standing at his grave, and for the first time, she truly looks at him, not as the hero, not as the boastful man she once dismissed, but as someone who had loved her all along. The question is, did Himmel know she would one day realize it? Or did he accept long ago that sometimes love isn't about being known in the present, but in the echoes left behind? Finally, the third side. Himmel loved too soon. Frieren realized too late. But there's one more side to this story, one we haven't mentioned yet. Us. Up until now, we've seen the love through Himmel's patience and Frieren's regret. But as the audience, we sit at a distance, watching their story unfold. We see what Himmel wanted Frieren to understand. We feel the weight of Frieren's realization. We know the love that existed between them long before she ever did. And in doing so, we become the third side of this love story. Because unlike Frieren, we don't have centuries to reflect. And unlike Himmel, we don't always have the patience to wait forever. We exist in the middle, where time is moving, where moments are fleeting, where love can be recognized or lost. So the question is, what do we take from this? Do we let love slip away like Frieren, or do we embrace it before it's too late, like Himmel tried to? Because in the end, it isn't just their story, it's ours too. If this spoke to you, please leave a like, share your thoughts in the comments below, and be sure to hit the subscribe. I really appreciate all your guys' support in our past few videos, and I love reading your guys' comments. There's always so much more we can explore and talk to. Peace.